from the longer Sichas and the Kutter Sichas. The Sefer Sichas, all of those are long because that's more like one long theme from the whole Fabrengen. But as a Sicha, this is considered a longer Sicha. I'm going to try to see if I can get the general picture in this shir, so we'll have a complete thing tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to a little bit on some of it is the inside, some of it will be just explaining and talking about what the Rebbe is saying, and then moving on to the next part without reading it inside. So that way we can cover at least the whole Sicha in a generalized way. Okay, so it's always good to start with the reading. So I'll start with reading and then I'll switch to saying some things by heart. This is a Sicha, as you can see, Shabbos Nachamu. Shabbos Nachamu is the Shabbos after Tisha B'Av, Shabbos Veschanan, Pashas Veschanan, and it focuses on the Nachama. The Nachama means a consolation that the Eibusher consoles the Yidden for the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And it says in the Haftarah, the reason why it's called Shabbos Nachamu is because the Haftarah starts with Nachamu Nachamu Ami. That's the Pashut, the reason. Of course, it's everything is much deeper and has a stronger connection. But we find many times, like Chazayin, Shabbos Chazayin, is because the Haftarah starts with Chazayin Shayo. And you know the story of the Baditchev, that the Rebbe always brings by the Fabrengens. The Moshel with the garment, with the father that gave his child a beautiful garment to wear, and he tore it, and then finally, the third time, the father just showed it to him from a distance. But we call it Chazayin. Traditionally, in all the communities, it's called Chazayin because that's the Shabbos. The Haftarah starts with Chazayin. So here we have Shabbos Nachamu, which is the Nachama for the Beis HaMikdash, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And the focus is going to be on one of the things that I was going to focus on is in the double Lashon Nachmu Nachmu. Even though the Medrash explains that it's a Nachama B'Keflayim because it's Laku B'Keflayim. What does it mean, Nachama B'Keflayim because Laku B'Keflayim? Very simply, Tisha B'Av marks the destruction of both Batei Mikdashes, the first one and the second one. So, in that vein, Nachmu would be Nachama for the double blow to the two Batei Mikdashes. So the Rebbe is going to examine this inyan of the double Nachama, and with this double Nachama that we're going to focus on in the Sicha, the Rebbe is going to bring in another case of a double Nachama. And by examining and looking very carefully into the case that the Rebbe is going to bring of another double Nachama, we'll be able to understand what this Nachama is all about. What is the other double Nachama? The other double Nachama is the story at the Siyum Maseches Makkos with Rabbi Akiva and three other Tanoim, and they ended up conceding, so to say, and telling him, Akiva nichamtonu. Again, double lashon. I'm going to explain much more. What the Rebbe's questions about the double Nachama. I just finished saying that it makes perfect sense. It fits so well because it's Laku B'Keflayim. Obviously, that we know what it is. So Nachama B'Keflayim is to console for that double destruction. But the Rebbe is going to ask a question on it, and then we're going to set up the table for the explanation that's going to be brought in. First, we have to know what the question is. So inside, if them keful lashon hakos of Nachamu Nachamu Ami, it's a pasuk in Yeshaya. You can look on the bottom always. There's Mara Mekaymis over here. Yomer lekeichem. The Eibusher is saying to the Yidden, and we know the famous Medrash. Not to get into it now. The Eibusher sends the tzaddikim to console the Yidden, and the Yidden refuse, and the Eibusher sends them back. So they bring back the message of the Yidden, and the Eibusher sends them back a message. So the Eibusher is saying this is the first one of the Shiva de Nechemta, the 7 Shabbosim that we read Haftarahs, and Haftarahs not mitoichin of the Pasha, even though of course everything is connected in a deeper sense. But on the surface, it's not because of the Teichen of the Pasha like we find normally, but it's actually because of the time of the year. So from after Tisha B'Av till Rosh Hashanah, we read Shiva de Nechemta, 7 weeks of Teiches that are Nachamos. The first one is Nachmu Nachmu, and the Eibusher is saying, he's sending the Navi, And he's telling them, console my nation. Zog the Medrash. Laku b'kiflayim, u'misnachlim b'kiflayim. Because they were punished and they were they had a double blow that they suffered twice, two chabonas. As the inyan nichem v'zayin kafel, so the consolation is also double. Darf man verstehen, was ist der main beteichen von Nachama b'kiflayim? So the Rebbe doesn't explain too much over here the question. It's almost like so obvious that you have to understand it yourself. So maybe you could suggest what's the Rebbe's question. That's the problem I had, so I want to see if I came up with the right answer, so I'll see if other people think of the same answer. It's almost like it's a given, no reason to even explain. So perhaps, imagine somebody lost $50 and then he lost $50. So you give him back he finds $100. He finds it. It's one Nachama at the end of the day. I'm just offering a suggestion. Because at the end of the day, it totals. What are we getting back now? If we're getting back to 100, it's one Nachama. I'm getting back the 100 that I lost. I lost it in 2 parts, but I'm still getting back one Nachama. If we get the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, which cancels both Churbanos, it's not really, look at it as one Nachama that takes care of both. But it's not like 2 separate Nechamas, it's one thing that's going to be happening. Is we're going to have the Beis HaMikdash, we're going to have Mashiach, we're going to have Beis HaMikdash. So how do you say Nachama b'kiflayim? It's not like we're going to get one kind of Beis HaMikdash at one point, and then we're going to get another Beis HaMikdash later, even though the first one was also very good. But it wasn't as good as the last one, so it's a bigger Nachama, so we have 2 Nechamas, or the same, but both of them together add up as what we were missing by the first 2. So then you could say Nachama b'kiflayim. I'm just thinking, there's such an obvious question that this is what I understand it to mean. What does it mean, Nachama b'kiflayim? You're saying it? You're saying it twice? And what happens if you say it 3 times? It's a triple Nachama. Why not add some more? A bonus. So obviously, we need to understand more about this Nachama b'kiflayim. In what way is this Nachama b'kiflayim? In other words, how do we actually see the kiflayim in the Nachama? In the Nachamu? What exactly does it have in it that it possesses this double kind of Nachama? Lidach is you do the kasher pashas. What's the chiddush from Nachama b'kiflayim? Wie bald as the laku is given b'kiflayim. Besides that, what exactly is the great novelty here? Wow! You know something? They were laku b'kiflayim, so the misnacham b'kiflayim. You mean to say because it says Nachamu, we have a chiddush over here? That the Eibishter is now doing something unusual. Something that's not expected necessarily. He's consoling them twice. They were hit twice. So he's going to console them for what happened. So there's a Nachama b'kiflayim automatically over here. It follows naturally that there's a Nachama b'kiflayim for something. If the Eibishter is menachem them, he's menachem them for what happened to them. Okay, so the Rebbe says that Here's what the Rebbe brings in Maseches Makis. There too we find a double expression of Nachama, as the Gemara says, as the Gemara brings what the Tanoim said. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Yeshua, and they said this to Rabbi Akiva, as we're going to soon read the story. Akiva nechamtanu. See, a double lashon of Nechama. And that's in connection with the Churban Begolus. Not just that we're finding this similar type of expression, but it's about the whole Churban and Golus, as we'll soon explain in the story. And there we have too, as well, we have the double expression, the double language of Nechama. As in Yonah, and Yonah von Teresh B'Ksav, and Nisparish from Nispar, and Teresh B'Peh, is Al Derech Zebenitin Didan. And as we have the principle that whatever we need more clarification on in Teresh B'Ksav, we find the clarity in Teresh B'Peh. We find that clarification in Teresh B'Peh. You don't need a lot to know this, as the Rambam explains, that a lot of mitzvahs are not even explained and given over to us with all the details The example that Rambam brings is tefillin and sukkah, that you have a tefillin, and where do we know all these things? That it has to be black, and it has to be square, and it has to be all these things about it, hundreds and hundreds of halachas, if not thousands, is from Teresh Peh. Because Teresh Peh is a partner with Teresh B'Ksav, and it clarifies and it brings out that we can understand. That's in one way. Over here it's in a story, but it's the same idea that you're going to find the answers in Teresh Peh. Base. So the Rebbe is now going to bring the actual case of the story with Rabbi Akiva and the other Tanoim. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, Mahalchin, Baderech. There's two similar stories here, so pay attention to the specifics, to the nuances. One is that they were traveling. Where were they going? They were going to Rome. As a matter of fact, they were going to Rome on a mission. They were going to undo a decree, an evil decree. So they were traveling to Rome. And Bishamu Kol Hamayna Shal Roimi Mi Palta B'Rechaik Me'av Esrim Mil. They heard the bustle, and the noise, and the busyness, and the thriving of Rome. That means it was happening. It was happening. Rome was full with activity, with action, with people, with commerce, and they heard that noise in a distance of 120 mil. It's a far distance, so far that it reached to them. So as soon as they recognized that this is coming from Rome's flourishing, what happened was they started to cry. Rabbi Akiva started to laugh. So they said to him the obvious: Rabbi Akiva, is everything okay? Why are you laughing? They couldn't see any reason for laughing in such a case. Maybe he didn't feel as sad as them, so he didn't break out crying, but laughing is the other extreme completely. So guess what he answers? Just like a Jew, he answers with a question. Ve'atem, and you, the other three, why are you crying? These guys that serve Avodah Zarah, they worship other gods. They are secure, and they're comfortable, no worries. They don't have anything bothering them, and they're thriving. And we, on the other hand, our home, our Beis Hamikdash, the house of God, is burnt, and we shouldn't cry. Thanks for helping me with the explanation, he says to them. It's exactly why I'm laughing, what you said. What is it? If you see what's going on, how much success these people that are going against Hashem's will are having, so how much more so is it going to be for those that do fulfill the Eibish's wishes, the Eibish's ratzon. Okay, let's take it for face value now, because the Rebbe is going to ask 8 questions on this. So I think any question we have is probably taken care of already in the Sicha. Now comes the second story, which has a lot of similarities, but it's still different. Shuv, another time. Shuv again. Once they sang for Tanoim. We're traveling to Yerushalayim. As soon as they came to the Harat Seifim, which is the mountain, we all know this mountain, anyone who's at Yisrael, where you see Yerushalayim from this high mountains that surround Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim Harim Savimla, right? And so they saw Yerushalayim from the mountain called Harat Seifim. Called a big day, and they tore Kriya, which is for mourning, because if you see the Churban, you tear Kriya. When they came to the Harabayis, they saw a fox that came running out of the place of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where the Kodesh HaKadoshim was originally, before it was destroyed, that same place. So they started to cry. This is a familiar episode. Rabbi Akiva was sachik. Rabbi Akiva is laughing. So again, the same thing repeats itself. They say to him, "Why are you crying? Why are you laughing?" He said to them, "And you, why are you crying?" So he answered them. So they explained to him why they're crying. And this time they brought a different pasuk. I didn't bring any. This time they bring a pasuk. Before they didn't bring a pasuk, and now they bring a pasuk. It says in Bamidbar, and someone who's not a kohen, who's a stranger, who doesn't belong being in the Beis Hamikdash, comes close to the Beis Hamikdash, he comes into the area of the Beis Hamikdash, he's going to be punished by death. And now we see that there's a fox. Foxes are running around in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and we shouldn't cry. Again, he used their own words, so it's more economical. Exactly, thank you. This is exactly why I'm laughing. What is his reason? So he brings a pasuk. The Eibishter says, I'm going to bring loyal witnesses. Who was the Eibishter saying that he's going to bring? Es Uriah HaKoyen ve'es Zechariah ben Yivrachiyo. So Akiva continues. These two, Eidin and Monim, the Eibishter is going to bring, they have a Nevi'us. There's two prophecies. One is from Uriah HaKoyen and one is from Zechariah ben Yivrachiyo. So says Rabbi Akiva to them, V'chimayin Uriah Eitzel Zechariah. Uriah Eitzel Zechariah. Uriah Mikdash Rishon. Zechariah Mikdash Sheni. Why would it say in the same pasuk, in the same statement, I'm going to bring two loyal witnesses, Uriah HaKohen, who is from the first Beis Hamikdash, and Zechariah, who's from the second Beis Hamikdash, and put them and lump them into one, as if they both are saying the testimony at the same time period. It's two different time periods completely. Yet the pasuk says, I'm going to bring two trusted, two loyal witnesses about the churban and about the rebuilding. This is what Rabbi Akiva is telling them, asking them, what's the connection between these two Nevi'im? No, but then what is the answer? He says, Elo tola kosim v'osish l'chari ben v'osish l'uriah. The reason why the pasuk puts them together, even though they're in two total different time periods, is because the pasuk is linking one Nevi'us to the other Nevi'us. It's linked. It's very important that we mention them together because one is dependent on the other. And it says, by Uriah it says, one talks about how the Beis Hamikdash is going to be plowed, or Yerushalayim is going to be plowed like a field, which means it's going to be total destruction, it's going to be flattened, it's going to be uprooted. And then we have the Nevuah of Zechariah who says that there's going to be a time when all people are going to enjoy the streets, enjoy promenading and sitting on the bench and the peacefulness and the rebuilding of the whole Yerushalayim and the state of the Yidden. So Rabbi Akiva says like this: the pasuk is telling us that one is dependent on the other. That when will you see this Oid Yeshvim Zkenis Yerushalayim? When are you going to see it? When you're first going to see the fulfillment of the first prophecy, which is the destruction. Al derech, like we say, there's an inyan of Yerida Tzedek Aliyah. There's going to be a greater gain from an investment, from a drop, from a descent. So you can't ask for the greater good that's going to happen before you see the fulfillment of the opposite. So that, and this is what Rabbi Akiva, how he explains it now. Now, if I'm waiting to see the nevuah of Zechariah, I don't know what's going to happen and in what measure it's going to. The Rebbe is going to explain this more. I don't know yet, and I don't know what to expect until I see the same idea to the same degree, the same intensity or the same magnitude of the negative side of the nevuah of Uriah. Then I could say the counterpart or the good side of it is going to be in the same measure at least. So now I'm happy, because now I see to what extent the Churban is. That tells me to what extent the Geula is going to be, the Binyan is going to be. And they liked what he said. B'loshen hazeh, the Gemara continues, B'loshen hazeh omrulai, they said it with this wording, Akiv anichamtonu, Akiv anichamtonu. You comforted us. So the Rebbe now is going to say I just want to see how much time we have over here. Yeah, we have some time. We have till when? Till 9:15?
9:30.
Okay. So the Rebbe is now going to explain that this Agada has halachic implications. That when we learn it, even though it's Agada, this is Agada of the Gemara, which is not tangible necessarily in the sense of halacha, where it's more technical and more practical. Agada is sometimes something that is connected to Ruchnisdikkeit, and we don't understand everything exactly how. But the Rebbe says that if there's no contradiction anywhere else, says the Rebbe, you learn in Yoneh Halacha from this, and you rely on this to be also something that gives you information or principle in halacha. And the Rebbe continues and says, even if you want to say that Agada, you can't learn halacha from it, the Rebbe says still, in this case, at least you could learn a certain way of reasoning that will support halacha thinking. And besides, says the Rebbe, we're not dealing with a plain Agadat over here where you hear things like impossible things and far from what we can relate to in a practical way. But here we have a story. It's a story that happened. It's a story that happened to Amiroim. So it's got to have halachic implications that apply in halacha and not just looking at it as only Agadata. And especially, says the Rebbe, when it comes to the second case, I'm now on the second column, left column of page 68. I'm in the middle of Beis. In the second case, we actually have a certain halacha, the Maisa. Because, halacha b'poyel. Because in the second case, it says when they came to Had Seifim, they ripped their clothes. Which is an act, which is something you do, which is what halacha is all about. So there, it's negeya to take this agadata not only on a level of agadata and not that it has any connection to halacha, but here we see that there are different halachic implications here. And more than that, says the Rebbe, Rabbi Akiva must have done it as well. Even though he was laughing and they were crying, it doesn't mean that he didn't do what they did. Because it doesn't say anything about Rabbi Akiva not doing so. It says, Karu Bigdeya. So therefore, first of all, we have to see this as something more than just in the realm of spirituality, but not necessarily that it comes down to practical. In halacha, we have to see this as something that's connected to halacha. And if it's negayah to halacha, then what's their machlokes? Huh? If it's negayah to halacha, then what's the machlokes? L'may nafka mina. What are they arguing about? What comes as a result of one way of Rabbi Akiva's approach? What comes as a result of their approach? That the difference means that we have to now somehow determine between the two different sides. In what practical way? What does it entail? I don't know. When I learned it, I thought maybe that it means that according to Rabbi Akiva, you have to laugh when you experience all these things. According to the other Tanaim, you have to cry. But obviously, I don't think Rabbi Akiva disagrees, as you'll see soon. it's not about the halacha of laughing and halacha of crying. As the Rebbe will explain. Let's learn the last paragraph of Ois Beis. It's on the left side of Piko Anal. Piko Anal darf man verstehen. We have to understand, and as the Shas uses, and what is their argument? Was sind die halachadike Svares, was sie sind in der Tam des Sibbe, was sie Nachama Nachamu seine Mechulek mit Rabbi Akiva und min hakotzel hakotzel. What are the Svares in halacha that lead them to see something so differently? Which means, not like I just said, but much more than that. They have to be basing their approach, their thinking, based on other places that they see that halacha gives you this way of doing it, is dictating this way to see things. They both sides, the three Tanaim and Rabbi Akiva, have to be basing it on halachic cases that provide room for both ways of seeing it. But it can't just be just like that, a feeling. That's what the Rebbe is basically saying. It can't be just feelings. So what are they basing this on? Is doch moving as they hava mine was is chilu beichen hat noch und zwar salach. But the fact that even though they conceded and they said akiv nechamtanu, which appears to be that they now agree and they yield to Rabbi Akiva, but still, what was their thought to begin with? Their thinking, a havamina, that means the original thought had to still be based on halacha. What would have been that halachic foundation? Gefragt, als in der ersten Sippe wird der Mann, als haben gesagt, Akiva nechamtanu. Und für sie echt manchmal davon, was Schuze Akiva bei dem ersten Mura, hat sie nicht abgehalten von Livkes bei dem zweiten Mura, Schuv, Pamach, Zuchulu. And so we have to say that it was so much of a havamina. It wasn't just a thought that lasted a few minutes, but it was so much of a havamina that even after he answered them by the first story, they didn't retract. They didn't change. And the Rebbe says, because of the fact that we see the next time they still cried again. If he would have managed to convince them and win them over to come over to his side, then they wouldn't have cried the second time. So what do you see from here? That it's not just a havamina, it's a havamina of Tanoim. And it's a havamina in Torah, which means it has to be based on something that has some kind of a foundation that you could base this behavior and this outlook. Gimel. And now the Rebbe is going to ask the 8 questions. Question, the Rebbe is going to say, we have to examine more carefully different difficulties that we have with these stories. In the stories, in the connection and the continuation, and the flow, the relationship between the first and the second story. Aleph. Was ich gewende Schale von der Bekehrung mit dem Atembecher. Es ist doch ein Dover Apostel, beschaß man hat Kehl am Ende Schleimi. Chulu, was hat Cholov gemacht, ein bisschen Mikdash, und fragt dem Ura hat Beis. Als man sieht, ein bisschen Mikdash, mit Geidel Chulbonai, Schuh, Schuh, Yotze, Beis Koitche, Kadoshim. Darf doch Arissa von der Welt zu Bechies. What is he acting surprised for? I mean, there's no room to have a question, why are you crying when you experience what they experienced in both stories? It's the automatic thing to do. It makes sense. There's no chiddush over here that he should ask them, why are you crying? Now it could be that he has a reason why he should be laughing, which cancels the crying. But the why are you crying is not like, what are you thinking? The what are you thinking only goes on him. It doesn't go on them. What do you mean, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that I'm watching a total destruction, which is very, very sad. Why are you crying doesn't really fit. Why am I doing something that doesn't make sense? I'll explain it to you. Their question makes sense to him. The other way it doesn't make sense. That's what the Rebbe is basically saying. Beis, noch mehr ist nicht verstandig. Another thing. Das was sie wird erzählt im zweiten Siebel. Kisheigil haratzef in Korbik Deim ist ein Pashtus, wie sie es Maschel von Stimes Vahamshach Haloschen, als ich Rebbe Akiva hat das getan. As we mentioned before, das heißt, als ich Rebbe Akiva hat dabei getreut auf dem Chut Beis HaMikdash. is was fragte the noch in primaten beichem. More, even more than this, says the Rebbe. Not only what kind of question does he have for them, which is obvious and a normal thing to do, but here we see that he alone did the same, had the same behavior in mourning and having sorrow for the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Because it says Karu B'Gdeim, it doesn't say that he didn't do it. So he did it also. So now it makes a question even stronger. Why is he looking at them in a strange way when he himself is practicing the same thing? Gimel. Der Posuk war Azor HaKodev Yumas, redt nicht wegen der Knisse von Azor in Kodesh HaKodashim, sondern wegen Azor, was tut an Aveda in Beis Hamikdash. Und wie bald, als die Tanoim haben gewollt, Matthew sein, dem Isser, a viele von Knisse in Kodesh HaKodashim, haben sie doch gedacht, bringen den Posuk, weil Yochel b'Cholei Shal HaKodesh, wo es steht befurisch, als a viele HaKohen Gadol tornet rein in Kodesh HaKodashim b'Chol Shana. B'Chol Shana. Here they're looking at something that happened in the Kodesh HaKodashim. The fox that ran out was from the Kodesh HaKodashim. So why are they bringing a pasuk that shows only how severe it is to come close and to do an avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Oil Moed, not in the Kodesh HaKodashim, in the Heichal, not in the Kodesh HaKodashim? Let them bring a pasuk where it says, which is talking about the Kohen Gadol. And even the Kohen Gadol, who is allowed to go into the Kodesh HaKodashim because he's so special and he's so great. But it's only that one day a year, the rest of the year, he's considered a Zar. That's a much stronger raya, and it's much more. It has much more of a connection to what they're experiencing and why they're so sad. Dalit. Was ist der Kasalkadaita von Rekiva? Actually, in the Skaiman of Wasser Shloria, how you see Messiah like the Skaiman of Wasser Zacharia. Wie ist Shaykh Asofik an Nevuah? As a Nevuah wird Chas v'Shalom nicht bekommen werden. Und fragt mich mal, wenn er Kol Dibur v'Dibur sheyotzah v'Yakadosh Baruch Hu l'Teva afilu al Tnai le'Chazar bei. Now we have another problem. The Rebbe is asking. He says, until I saw the fulfillment of this Nevuah, I wasn't sure about the fulfillment of the good Nevuah. What is he doubting? The Eibishter now. He's doubting what the Eibishter says is not going to come to be. And even more, we have a cloud that if it's a good prophecy, if it's a prophecy for something good that's going to happen, then the Eibishter doesn't take it back. It never goes back. It never, even if it's in a condition. But the Eibishter never takes it back. So what exactly is he saying over here? Is he saying that he needs proof that he himself wasn't sure that this is going to happen? That's 4. Now we're holding number 5. Hey, was bringt Rabbi Akiva dafke de Nevuah ziehen Zode Techodesh und Techrash und nicht kein andere friedike Nevuah von Churban und Geula? Why does he focus in only on this Nevuah of ziehen Zode Techodesh? Now you could say because of the linkage between the two prophecies, and that's dafke where we find Uriah and Zechariah. So that in itself has to be explained. It still doesn't explain fully why Rabbi Akiva is going to bring Tzin Sodat Chodesh. Vav, to Livos, there's plenty of other prophecies on the Churban and on the Geula. Vav, to Livos is the Gemara Mefaret, the Nemen von Al Tanoim. Why does the Gemara list, enumerate, mention the names of the Tanoim? Wie ist doch negate zu sagen, dass Rabbi Akiva hat an andere Idee. The main thing is to just say that Rabbi Akiva had a different opinion. He had a different approach. Verhanhoga and behavior. Von sie. Hat doch gekannt stehen, al derach wie mir gefühlt bekannt bekommen, ist kvar hoi Rabbi Akiva, us keinem v'chulu v'kiyetze bezeh. We're not so much focusing now on who it was. We're focusing on Rabbi Akiva because we want to say Rabbi Akiva is the one who did differently. But it doesn't really matter. He was walking with this Canaan, and this is what happened, and he did differently. Zion, was haben die Chachamim noch bei dem zweiten Meure gesagt, auf der Tshuva von Rabbi Akiva, only on the second story did the Chachamim answer Akiva nechamtonu, und nicht bei dem ersten. That's a strong question. That's it's like begging to be asked, And that is the big difference here in both stories. One story they don't say Akiva Nacham Tanu, the second story they do say. So what's the why? Ches, and now Rebbe quotes from the Gemara, "B'loshen hazeh omru loi, Akiva Nacham Tanu, Akiva Nacham Tanu." What is the kefil kol haloshen? Und die Bavon ist as b'loshen hazeh omru loi. So first of all, why does it repeat itself twice? Getting back to the original Nachama Nachamu, here we have it, the same question in the Gemara. Why did they say Akiva Nacham Tanu, Akiva Nacham Tanu? We don't have an answer yet. Now is when the question comes in. And not only that, why is Ubeloshen Hazeh? Why is the Gemara stress? And this is the language, this is the wording that they said, that they used. So the Rebbe suggests what the Mashah says. The Mashah zogt of them. The Rebbe brings what the Mashah answers. On the last two questions, why did they answer only on the second one, Akiva Nacham Tanu, Akiva Nacham Tanu, and why is there a double lashon? So the Mashah brings an answer for these two questions. Kaflu hal dvarim al shem shnei hamaisim shezocha. Why? Because of the two stories. There's two stories here, and there's two responses by Rabbi Akiva. And for these two responses, they're summarizing now. They're saying, on both of these cases, Nicham Tonu, Nicham Tonu. So the Rebbe is not going to be satisfied with this answer. The Shnei HaMaisim sind doch given bei Hefsik Zman. So the Rebbe says, of the Tiritz Fakt das Hasbara. The Tiritz needs more explaining. Because these two stories did not happen in one series of events, in one continuation. It happened behefsek zman u'makom. It was at a different time period, not time period, but it was in a total different time, and it was in a total different place, as the Rebbe is going to explain. Der erste Mais ist gewesen, כשhoyim halchem aderech zukommendig zureimi. Und the zweite, Shuv, the Gemara talks about Shuv, another such story, כשhoyim oil Yerushalayim. One is when they were on the way to Rome, to Vatlik Zeder, and the other one is when they were going to Yerushalayim. Wie werden sie zusammengenommen bechodem machse in demselben Empfang? Imagine someone told you something last week, and he tells you something this week, and then you give him some kind of an answer on both. There's no connection between the two. It didn't happen in the same event. It didn't happen in the same place. That there should be any kind of logical way to understand that this is for both. They didn't travel to Rome and pass Yerushalayim on the way, and then it played itself out until they got both answers from him in the same journey, and they figured, oh, both of them. Now you got us because it's convincing. No, they were traveling to Rome, and whatever other time it was, but it wasn't a few hours later. It probably wasn't even a few days later. Then they were traveling to Yerushalayim, a different journey, a different time, and they answered Nicham Tanu, Nicham Tanu. What about the first case? This is for the first case that happened who knows when before? So the Rebbe doesn't accept the Mashah's answer as a complete answer. Yeah, we have some time. I'm going to go inside so far. Dal, the Pashas can on Masbe sein, as beide Muroi zetmen the Nekuda, as in beide Muroi zetmen the Nekuda Mishutefes, in the sheet from Rabbi Gabliv, Rabbi Loz ben Azav, Rabbi Yehuda mitzad Echad, and Rabbi Akiva mitzad Hasheni. Maybe we could say, how it's possible, perhaps we could explain that in both events we see the common point, the common theme. How it is when it comes to the Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Loz ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, and we see the common way of thinking with Rabbi Akiva. We can believe it. Rabbi Yeshua hat mir jedem Ure gesehen, dem Ingen Halleitev Shabazeh. Und Rabbi Akiva hat Eichen sie gesehen, dem Tachlis wird Teichen Hatev. Und Rabbi Akiva geht bis alle Shitose, wie sagt, Makamach, Leil mir hört, dem Dog Leima, Kol, der Abdrachman, und Tav Avid. Und wie die Gemara erzählt dort, als er ist gewesen, in seinen Hage bepeil. That means in the same place. Not in the same place as Gemara Makkos, but in Gemara Brachos, where the Gemara wants to tell us Rabbi Akiva's style, how Rabbi Akiva looked at things. So the Gemara also brings a story, a famous story. that the Rebbe is going to bring later in the Sicha. So we could say, how would this be an explanation? Und leit dem kann man weiter sein, was die Gemara bringt, beide Murais behem Shechachot. And this, according to this, perhaps we could explain why the Gemara brings it in one continuation. The Gemara lumps them both together. Although they took place in different time, different places. Does it nicht nur der Fall, was beide Sippurim und Basit mit derselben Tanoim? It's not just because it happened with the same individuals. Nur weil in beide Murais geführt mit derselben Nekude und Schittes Rabbi Akiva, sie sind behave, in jeder sagt, die Erles wird teil, was kommt von Arois später. So the truth is, says the Rebbe, that you can use this as an explanation. The Gemara is teaching us two different schools of thought, two different styles, two different approaches, two different attitudes. It's basically the cup is half full or half empty. Pessimist, the optimist, something like that, but it's not like that at all when you think more into it. But al derech, the idea that there's two ways of seeing something, two people are looking at the same thing, and one person could see it as half full, the other person could see it as half empty. So al derech said, the Gemara is telling us, we find this type of thinking consistent with these Tanoim, and we find this type of thinking consistent with Rabbi Akiva, because we have a case. First of all, we have a case of the first story, where the other Tanoim were crying, and Rabbi Akiva was laughing. Then we have the second story, where the other Tanoim were crying, and Rabbi Akiva was laughing. And we have a story about Rabbi Akiva that also shows us that he's consistent with his way of seeing things, with a story that brings out Rabbi Akiva's way of seeing things, his attitude when something negative happens, and he says, "Kol mada avad Nachama Nachamu." So that's why this is not so much about a story, and the only reason why we bring in the second story is because it's with the same people, but it's a story that's actually building a case. It's confirming that this is a certain approach that these Tanoim took, and this is the other approach that Rabbi Akiva took. So we're focusing on the approach, and we're finding more than just one type of one case that shows us this. But the Rebbe is not going to accept this either. According to that, we need to understand. So you're saying that you need all these three stories, to establish what Rabbi Akiva's position is, that he sees the positive. We'll talk about the story with Rabbi Akiva. It's a known story, but the Rebbe is going to bring it later in the Sicha. In short, the story is that he had some misfortune happen to him. He wanted to stay in a town, and they didn't let him in because they didn't have Achnas Zarchim there. So he was forced to stay in the forest right outside the city. And his candle that he used for learning, and his rooster that he used for waking him, for being woken up, and his donkey that he used for travel, all got taken away. One was with the wind blew out the candle, and some animal came and ate up the chicken, the rooster, and some loud noise or something startled the donkey, and now he's left with something unfortunate. And he said, "Kol mada avad Nachama Nachamu." Everything the Eibusher does is for good. So what do you see? That's his approach. That's the way he sees things. That's the way he looks at things. He doesn't see the negative. He doesn't focus on the negative. He focuses on the positive. So the Rebbe is going to say, why do we need all three stories to bring out that this is his position? The story of Kol mada avad Nachama Nachamu, the Gemara Brachos, takes care of everything. It just shows you very clearly and very openly what his attitude is. Aleph. The tzrichas von alle drei, why do we need all three? Was ist der Chiddush in Shittas Rabbi Akiva, the beide Sippurim, und ein Leimar called Abdurrahman, sorry, not ein Leimar, and in Leimar called Abdurrahman al-Tabav. What's the Chiddush that I need both Sippurim and I need the third story that's in Gemara Brachos? If you want to tell me that this is to establish his position, you don't need all three Sippurim. Beis. Another question. If you're a Yid, you automatically are going to look at everything that it comes from the Eibishter and it's only for the good. What's the Chiddush? What's the Chiddush that Rabbi Akiva is saying that Kol Ma'adav and what? And the other Tanaim are disagreeing? You're not a Yid. I mean, this is the basic of Yiddishkeit. These are Tanaim. So inside, called the Nachama Nachamu, which is what Rabbi Akiva says, is a klal on welchem ik gefindt it gemachleikes. Und azay is abgepasst in Shulchan Aruch. This is a how do you say, a basic tenet of Yiddishkeit. Umeil is it established as the Tanoim Rabbi Geliv Rabbi Lazar Zav Rabbi Yeshua is only them kriegen. It doesn't fit logically that they would argue against such a thing, that you have to see that this is for the good. Rabbi Yeshua says, I feel by the zweiten Mura. Was sie haben gesagt, Akiva Nechamtonu, is it muchlich as sie haben Charote gehabt von seiner Idee. It's not as if they had one approach, and now we see that they left their approach. It's not a contradiction that they would do what they did and they still maintain Kol Ma'adav Nachama Nachamu. It's a normal thing. It's a regular human condition that when you're going through a painful situation, it's painful, and you feel broken, you feel saddened, and at the same time you have hope and you have faith that it's going to be good. But it's not like you have to say over here, wow, Rabbi Akiva has his shita of Kol Ma'adav Nachamu, and now we need to win them over, or we need to find a way that they see it. Otherwise, it's simple. So what's the machlekes here? Gimel. So in other words, what is the Gemara doing by establishing two different ways of seeing it, as if there's a machlekes and the Tanoim don't hold Kol Ma'adav Nachama Nachamu? They agree. Gimel lefi analt Rabbi Akiva in sein Empfang gedacht sagen the Kudas Shitose Kol the Ovid Nachman Latav Ovid und danach Eibs is Much the Rai Protes. And if you want to say it's Rabbi Akiva's approach, it's his style, it's his way of looking at things, and that's really what you're bringing out, because you want to show the Shita of Rabbi Akiva and you want to show the Shita of the three Tanoim. Then why does he give them this long answer? He should have focused much more on the actual Shita of everything is for the good, more than spelling out that this Nevi'us is going to show this Nevi'us, because that's not the general way to describe what your attitude has to be in general. Here we're getting into a certain detail. We're showing how this shows you how it's going to be good over here, because there's a Nevi'us this way and that Nevi'us is connected to this Nevi'us, and therefore I see that if it's very bad, it's going to be very good. But that's only limited to this case. What about the general Shita? Kol Ma'adav Nachama Nachamu. He should have stated that first. And if he wants to go into details afterwards, he can go into details and show you how it applies over here. Okay. You got it. Vav.
You're not giving us hanging, are you?
No, I'm going to try to give over, but this is like one of those like sichas that just like you just want to get every detail, because it's so. I mean, every sikh is amazing, but some of them we're zeicher to see more. Everybody has his own sichas that he gets excited from, but this is like, to me, it's like I get a lot out of it. Vav, that man is verstehen behakt ma beer from the Gemara. I just want to turn the corner here. We can get into the Rebbe's general approach to the answer. I'm not doing this next week. Do we have a regular?
Yeah.
So I have to somehow summarize everything, because I'm not going to get a chance to tell you the rest of the Sicha. Vav. Wird man es verstehen, bei Haktem Abir von der Gemara Pashtus. The time of the Tmir von Rabbi Akiva Primat and Beichim is about. Okay, so here I think we can kind of take it to some point that we already have something to hold on to. The Rebbe is going to now say that Rabbi Akiva was not asking them in Primat and Beichim. They saw him laughing. That taka. Their answer to him was their answer, but his response to them was, that's not what my problem is. My problem is, why are you crying now? Why are you crying when you see the churban? When you see it in front of you, when you hear the Romans, or when you see the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, you don't know that there's a churban? So you're not crying about the churban that took place. You're crying about the churban that's continuing. Basically, the Rebbe is explaining that they told him the fact that they're crying, that they're not crying about the churban, they have an answer for that. Because the churban itself, the Eibishter cushioned the blow. Because it says, Va'adir b'lvonayin yipel, and this was such a grand, great, superpower country that destroyed the Yidden. So it's hakal l'fiyam avayish from his bayish. So it's like somebody a person got beat up by some very, very, very strong, skilled fighter. So it doesn't make him look so bad. It's not so denigrating. It's not so degrading. It's not something that completely makes him look like nothing. Okay, he's not as strong as that guy, but he's probably stronger than all the other people. This was a shtickle matchup. So the fact that the Romans, doch, they destroyed the Yidden is the Eibishter's way of making it less of a busha. So they're saying we're not so devastated by this. We're devastated of seeing the Chil Hashem now, after the Churban. If the Eibishter wanted to bring a country into the picture, and the Eibishter made it taka with the Churban itself, wasn't that much of a blow as it could have been if it was a weaker country or something. And then the Eibishter did it that they should destroy the Beis Hamikdash. Why are they still here and why are they flourishing? They did what they had to do. Why are they flourishing? Why are they so successful? Why are they thriving? And the same thing with the Churban when they saw the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Meile, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and the Kodesh HaKadoshim was destroyed, is one thing. But now we're looking how a fox is running in and out. The Churban still remains in such an extreme way. That we see that this Churban now is a Chil Hashem, so they're saying we have a Chil Hashem that's taking place here. We don't have the issue of the destruction. There had to be destruction, the Eibishter punished the Yidden for what they did, and there was a Churban, and the Eibishter made the Churban, and he made it in a way that we could save some face. So we're not crying now about that. It's after the Churban. So that wouldn't bring us to such great, when we see this. We're crying because when we see this now, is because we're watching a continuation that has no explanation to it. It's a big Chil Hashem. A fox should be running now at the Beis Hamikdash. Who needs that? That's not just a destruction. That's the continuation of something after. And they should be so successful. So what was Rabbi Akiva's answer to them? In a nutshell, Rabbi Akiva's answer to them was, it depends how you look at it. I don't see a distinction, a disconnect between the Chil Hashem and the Kiddush Hashem. And there's a Chil Hashem here that you're focusing on, and there's a Kiddush Hashem that's going to happen when the Eibishter builds a Beis Hamikdash. 3 minutes, right? I'm a teacher, I know very good not to pass the time. You're looking at it, says Rabbi Akiva to them. Oh, we got a Chil Hashem on our hands over here. This is crazy, we can't handle this. This is terrible. It's a Chil Hashem. And there's going to be a Kiddush Hashem that's going to be very great. I don't see it that way. I see it as the Chil Hashem is part of the Kiddush Hashem already. Because the greatness of the Chil Hashem is what's bringing and making the Kiddush Hashem that you can't separate it. Now this is a big discussion over here. There's a lot of beautiful inyanim here lying within. But I'm just going to cut to the chase. It's the second raya that Rabbi Akiva brings, the second pasuk, Tziyin, Tzad Techrash, that explains this. There's two ways of looking at something. There's either Kol Mad Da'ovid Nachama Nachamu, which is Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva did experience hardship. He did experience sorrow. He had a problem on his hands. But it led to something good, but the bad is independently bad. No one's going to tell you, as the Rebbe says, to lose your donkey, your candle, your rooster is a good thing. It still wasn't a good thing, the Rebbe says, because even if he would have had it and not had it, he wouldn't have had this loss. So it wasn't necessary for the good. It's independent of the good. The same thing would have happened. He would have been saved from going to that city and staying over in that city. He would have not had it, and he would have also been able to be saved. So you can't say there's a connection that one could be the other. But Tzia in Sada Techrash tells you that there's different ways that you could reap from the plowing. One way is you reap from the it could be regular reaping, which is good. It's going to grow and you're going to take in the crop. The other way is that it's going to be chita keklayas, like kidney size. The other way it's going to be that when Mashiach comes, when the plow touches the ground for plowing, you're going to be already reaping. Which means plowing, which is a form of destruction, is not only a destruction that brings to the growing, but it's part of the growing. While you're plowing, you're reaping. Says Rabbi Akiva, when it comes to this Inyan, you have to look at it that way. You have to look at the Yerida not as a Yerida the way Nachama Nachamu of it. That's why we need all three stories. We need the first case to show generally that it's going to bring to good, which is already a consolation, but it's not the Chantanu. We need the second one, which tells us that's kind of the same idea as the first one, but there's negative and it brings to the positive. But here you see that it's even going to be greater positive when it comes to the first story. When you talk about the third case, the pasuk that Rabbi brings, that's when they send the Chantanu twice, because that's going to be two milas in the Geula. Number one, it's going to fix and it's going to bring to the greatness. And second of all, we're going to say, we're going to see how the bad itself was part of the good. And we're going to thank Hashem for the trouble, which Rebbe says we can't do now, so don't try it at home. But we're going to be able to see how the bad was good. And that's what Rebbe Kiva is saying.
Our nice thing, last story, ready, all three of them. Please join us.